everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cavanaugh's Corner. I'm Andrew Cavanaugh. Thank you for coming back and visiting my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about a recent release. Actually, it's a Netflix exclusive release. I'm going to be talking about Adam Sandler's new movie, The Do-Over. Now, The Do-Over, actually, funny enough, actually has the budget of a major motion picture, and even some staff of some major motion pictures. The director of photography of this movie is actually the guy that was the director of photography on Dances with Wolves, so he's actually worked with Adam Sandler a lot lately, kind of surprisingly. Now, first and foremost, I'm just going to say this is not a great movie. This is no masterpiece. Did I enjoy it? Kind of. I did laugh a couple times. I'm going to talk about, some of the problems this movie has and some of the good things this movie has. But first and foremost, I want to start with the absolutely beautiful locations they filmed this movie on. They filmed this movie on location, certain parts of America, and actually, I think they actually went to Puerto Rico. And it's actually like a very beautiful, beautiful setting they shot this movie in. Just absolutely beautiful locations. That was something that really jumped out at me from watching the previews to this, is that the movie just looks absolutely gorgeous. Funny enough, probably due to Dean Semler being the DP on this one, he did a great job. For a movie that is a Netflix Adam Sandler movie, I was very surprised at how well this movie was shot. Something else I wanted to talk about is this movie here. Basically, the plot premise is David Spade is kind of I would say, a not so successful person. He's been working in a bank all his life. Basically the same supermarket he used to work in as a kid. Now he works as a manager in the bank. It's not, his life isn't going so well. His wife is kind of a mess. His kids are a bunch of jerks. And it's comedically so. I mean, they swear at him and everything. But the main thing about the plot of this movie is that Adam Sandler fakes their death so they can kind of take the place of these other guys, and kind of craziness ensues from there. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it's kind of a wild story, and out of all the Adam Sandler movies I've seen over the past couple years, this one definitely has the most interesting story of maybe any of his films. You really don't know where it's going to go, and I think that's really the main good thing about this movie is the comedy isn't always there. There's way too much gross out comedy for this movie. But the parts that do work are the kind of snappy comebacks that Adam Sandler comes out with. He really does have some really funny lines in this movie, and some of them are just off the cuff, and you can tell some of them were not written. He just kind of said them, and that's the kind of comedy I love. The movie does have some really, truly gross moments, and I think that actually works against the other humor in the movie that is actually kind of smart and funny. And then there's these random, completely disgusting moments. And I really wish they had left out some of the really gross out moments, because the movie would have been a much smarter kind of action comedy. The main thing I thought was really jumping out at me, actually at the beginning of the movie, was the fact that the movie has some really unbelievable product placement. I think there's 2 or 3 instances where there's a Budweiser. And there's a Budweiser that actually changes direction at the beginning of the film, so it's always facing directly at the camera. And it's so unbelievably noticeable that they even mention, oh, I heard you like Bud Light. Oh, there's a Budweiser. And they're actually saying these things. And I could understand, hey, grab me a beer, but it's not grab me a beer, it's grab me a Bud Light. And it drives me nuts when that kind of thing happens in a movie. I don't mind product placement all the time. Actually, one of my last reviews for Hush, they use Apple products really well in that movie, but they don't come out and say, oh, this is product placement for an Apple product. They just kind of show it, and it's actually used to good reasons for the story. This one here, it's just here's a Bud Light. you see the Bud Light, and it drove me nuts. And there's nothing they can do about that. They probably needed to do that, but it just drove me crazy. Some of the other things that kind of was not that great about this movie is that there's some truly awful dialogue, especially near the middle to end of the film. There are some plot developments that happen that are actually kind of surprising, but also the way they explain them is just really, really ham-fisted, and there's no reason for it to be that way. No audience member is going to be that stupid and not understand what's happening at some points in the film. But they feel the need to really over-explain, and that kind of really got to me, because you could tell they were just spouting out this written dialogue that was very, very expository and not always necessary. Other than that, though, funny enough, Adam Sandler is really funny in this movie. His part, actually one of his better parts in the last couple of years, much better than the Ridiculous Six, which I still think is one of the worst movies I think that's ever been released anywhere. That movie was just almost unwatchable. This here is a much better improvement. Some really funny moments here and there, but overall, it's nothing special. David Spade has some funny moments, but he's just, for whatever reason, he seems to be somewhat kind of sleepwalking through this one, and even his voiceover that kind of goes on and off throughout the film is almost not even necessary, but for whatever reason they put it in there. And some lines are funny, like I said, but for the most part it's a lot of gross out humor, and it doesn't always work. However, it does have the greatest use of Madonna's song Crazy for You, and if you watch the movie you'll get that reference. That part actually had me laughing pretty hard. But, again, not the greatest movie, definitely not Adam Sandler's best film, but one of his better ones within the last couple of years. I can't give this movie a great, nor can I give it a good. This is just straight out, just not a great movie, so I have to give it a bad. It's definitely not an ugly, but it ain't a good one either. So I give this one a bad. Strangely, it's still watchable, but I would say only if you're a diehard Adam Sandler fan could I recommend this one. But that's all I have for today. That's my review of The Do-Over. Next time I'm going to be actually talking about a war movie that is very close to my heart, just in time for Memorial Day. And I'll see you then. Good night.